Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Daventry Studios Creative Corner. Our guest tonight is the one and only Samantha Lorenz. Welcome. Thanks for being on our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome. And Samantha is I'll let her describe it. What would you describe your artistic role as?
I would say that I'm just an actor. I do mainly theater and street performing. I've done some film, but I'm mainly theater.
Yeah. So my first question for you is, where did your journey kind of begin with all of this, and what has the trajectory of the last couple of years is in your artistic journey? What has it looked like?
Okay, yeah. So the whole acting thing is just kind of in my blood. As soon as I could talk, I started talking at 6 months, and my parents would say that I would do all these facial expressions. So they'd say, okay, give me a happy face, and I'd do a happy face, and give me a sad face, and I'd do a sad face. And it just, right from the beginning, it was super in my blood. They put me in tap dancing class when I was 3, and that was my first performance. And I've got these little tap dancing shoes.
You have them with you?
Yeah, yep. They're little,
Aww.
just little itty bitty. I even still have the little rubber band with them to tie them together. But yeah, these were from my first performance ever, and I was just a ham. And growing up, whenever my cousins would come over, we would always put on these shows for the aunts and uncles, or when my dad came home from work, we'd always put on these random shows and usher them into the living room and make them sit down and watch it, which I'm sure was grueling, but they're amazing, supportive, everything. But yeah, and then they put me in theater growing up, and it's always just been part of my life, and they've been such an amazing support. When I decided, I want to go to college for theater and for acting, the only thing they ever said was, something to think about. Are you going to do something else with it? Or, what direction do you want to go? Which really helped. It didn't feel like they were kind of putting me down or anything. But they were amazingly supportive. They've been to every single one of my performances. I think they missed maybe one. And that's a lot of performances. So, it's been a wild ride. I've done so many performances throughout high school. I actually got my senior year director, took the martini cup that I used in the play, and he wrote down all of the productions I was in high school. And I have it here. It was, Wizard of Oz, which that was the performance that made me realize, this is what I want to do the rest of my life, 100%. I had this little girl who was dressed up as Dorothy, which is who I was, and she came over with her little pigtails and her slippers, and she was so shy. She had a little dog teddy bear, and the mom asked me, hey, can she take a picture with you? And oh my gosh, how do you say no to that? But that just made me realize, you make a difference on so many people's lives that you have no idea. You have no idea that you make a difference in these people's lives. But so that's what this is. It's pretty. It holds a special place in my heart, just because these were the plays that really made me, who I am. They're kind of the bulk of the beginning. So it's it makes a difference.
Do you have a favorite of all of those that are written there?
Oh yeah, it's Sweet Surrender is still to this day my favorite play, which is actually where this martini glass was from. But it's about these two divas who accidentally get booked into the same suite. So the manager and their assistants are trying to keep them apart. So it's a hilarious farce that with a lot of door slamming and ins and outs, and it's hilarious. But the theater that I'm at right now in Cloquet, it's the Cloquet Community Theater, and they're actually going to be performing it. And I asked them if I could direct, and they're like, well, yeah, you brought the play to us, you'll be directing it. So it's making a comeback.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
To return to it so many years later.
Right. Yeah. It's great.
Do you have any concrete influences, whether it be actors or playwrights or performers of any sort, that you really rely on to your muse or
Yeah.
influence you?
Yep, it's definitely, it hasn't necessarily changed throughout the years, but it's definitely added on. So initially, growing up, my favorite movie in the entire world is Aladdin, Disney's Aladdin. Absolutely love it. And Robin Williams in that show, or that movie, was a huge influence. Just how diverse and his voices and how he approached different characters all at the same time was such a huge inspiration. It stuck with me, and I really channeled that in a lot of my acting. And then as I got older, so he was one, and then when I was maybe in like, I want to say 2nd grade, somewhere younger, I saw Twig the Fairy at the Renaissance Festival. And I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she's a huge fairy. She's a big icon, I guess, in the Renaissance Festival world. But I saw her, and all I could think was, I want to do that. And oh my gosh, that stuck with me. But she does all of her acting. She doesn't talk at all. So she's a lot of body language. Her facial expressions are huge. So I channel a lot of that. And as I've gotten older and as I did more studying through college, Lucille Ball actually became a huge influence. I related a lot with her, and she's huge on the facial expressions and the body language, and that's something that I really try to put into my acting, and it's, oh my gosh, it's my favorite part by far. So those three are definitely the big influences on what I do, not only because of their style, but gosh, they just got the best kind of energy. And that's something that I aspire to have as well. So yeah.
And you actually got to be Twig.
Yeah, well, not necessarily Twig, but the Renaissance Festival has a fairy wing forest, and they hired these actors to portray fae characters in the forest. So I went to auditions, and I told them I was in love with Twig, and and they put me in the fairy wing forest, and I was, my character's name was Prick the Pixie, and she was great. She was just this little firecracker that, you know, people would point to me and say, oh, hey, look, there's a fairy. And she would automatically speak up and say, no, I'm not a fairy. Fairies are boring. I'm a pixie. We like to have fun. So it was such an amazing role to play, and I got to channel a lot of who I am into it, and just those acting things that I like, because I got to be whoever I wanted to be. So it was so much fun. But how that worked is you start with your the auditions, and then you go through this training, which they call Academy. And then after Academy, you go through the year and you perform, and then the veterans and the management and the people who lead these kind of guilds, I guess, they vote on who was the best rookie. So I ended up winning the rookie award, which is called the Cracked Cup Award, and it's literally a mug with a crack in it. So it's definitely an amazing honor, because it's not something you necessarily try for. You just kind of do you, and it's really nice to be recognized for the work that you put in. And it was an amazing experience. That there's so many stories regarding that character and just that process, and it's amazing. But yeah,
super cool. So a few things you mentioned, interacting with fans and the crowd, and also getting acknowledged for your work. And I think 2020 has been a difficult year for most people on this planet. And one thing that has really come into focus, I think, for a lot of people is, their second home, and they're realizing how big of an impact artists have, whether it be actors, musicians, writers. I mean, people are stuck at home, they're reading or watching something on television or playing video games or, something, and every one of those things has an artistic background or
Mhm.
artistic base.
Yeah.
And how do you think, like, what do you see as your role in, because you mentioned divas earlier, and so many people get on stage and they want to be, I'm the center of attention, all this stuff and whatever. And how do you approach being able to, or is there a way that you approach being able to be, or to use your artistic abilities as a gift to other people, to lift them up
Yeah.
and help them through times that they might be struggling with?
Right, and I think, like you mentioned, right now it's such a weird time that I was going to direct this show, but it got canceled. And putting those shows on, you see how big of an impact it is on people's lives, especially the older community, which is usually who attends the theater. And the theater that I've been working with, they decided to do outdoor stage reads. So people sit in their cars and you do these stage reads. And we actually have a performance tomorrow for that. But oh my goodness, it's amazing the need that people have to go out and do things and to see things. And it's so crazy seeing these people just being able to sit in their car and laugh, and they need to go and see that. And just realizing that, because a lot of people say, theater's a dying art. And seeing the people, we were sold out the first time that we did it. Seeing that, it's like, no, there's people that want to be here. And there's definitely that drive, and there's nothing like live theater. It's there, then it's gone. It's not like a movie you can hit rewind and watch again and again and again. And it's alive. It's a living, breathing thing. And I know that to a lot of people, whether you're an actor or you're a director or you're an audience, it makes it so much more interesting, and it's such a huge impact. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great story about people just wanting to, get out, because you say the words, script read through, and if you're in the theater, you're like, oh yeah, we sit around a table and we read through a script. That's what it is.
Right.
And to know that there's people like packing, in Cloquet, Minnesota, which is not a big town, but
right?
It's a packed house.
Yeah.
To just read through a script, it really shows that how essential art and beauty is to our world. And I think people are rediscovering that right now.
Oh,
in
for
a
sure.
big way. Yeah.
For sure.
And I loved what you said too about how it's a living, breathing thing. Because I think encounters with beauty are often something that you can't grasp or contain or hold on to, but you have to be shaped by and changed by, and you have to be kind of passive before it. So I think that's really beautiful, just what you mentioned about it being something that it almost imposes itself upon you and leaves a mark on you.
Oh, most definitely.
In a way that a movie can't, or something that you can rewind and replay a lot of times can't. So
yeah, for sure. Speaking of live theater, street performing, oh my goodness, there's no scripts, you don't know what to expect. And
your show and tell got a little cut short.
Yeah.
We were talking about the kazoo, and then we were like,
Yeah.
no, we can't finish.
Our special effects people got a little carried away after I complimented them. So now we're in a garage as opposed to outside. So
Beautiful garage.
thanks, guys.
Which is dry. So.
We need more people, different people next time. And then we'll get carried away. Anyway, your kazoo story.
Yep. I don't remember where I was at. But, long story short, I liked walking around, in the middle of the woods. People would hear the kazoo, and people would randomly clap when they were supposed to. And it was great, just seeing the look on people's faces, and especially little kids, where, oh my gosh, there's some random fairy walking around in the woods. It was just so magical. And, the parents got a boot out of it because it's, the song everybody knows. If you're happy you know it, clap your hands. And, oh man, it was great. But we would have just those little things make such a big difference. Like the costume that I wore had these elf ears, and they're big elf ears. And I had these wings that weren't huge, but when you're a little kid, ears and wings, holy buckets. So I had so many kids come up to me and ask me, are those real? And I'd say, of course they're real. They're my ears. And the next question, without fail, was always, can I touch them? And, you know, if you touch the ears, you can tell they're latex. If you touch the wings, you can tell it's nylon. So I would always tell the kids, yeah, you can touch them, but you have to be careful because they're really, really delicate and they break easy. So they would always gingerly reach up and try to touch them, and every time I do the whole and that was the reaction. And they would always, you know, like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's like, okay, you just scared me. And they would always kind of like, okay, we're not touching anyone's ears today.
It's a good way to do it.
Right? Yeah. So, and just keeping that, you know, magic alive, and the kids that, gosh, just the magic in their eyes, just seeing that, like, oh my God, these are real ears, you know. It makes a huge difference, and that's something that inspired me about Twig when I was little, was seeing this huge fairy, and she couldn't talk. She couldn't talk, and she had these huge wings. And just knowing that I did that for some little kid, oh my gosh, just totally changes everything.
Yeah.
So that's what theater does. That's what acting does. It's awesome. So yeah.
Very
That's
cool.
amazing. I love that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. My last question for you is how do you combine your normal everyday life with the art that you do? Is it all blended together? Do you see it as two separate things? How does it interact?
So I guess right now I've got just kind of a normal job. I'm a property manager. There are some aspects in my job, like I do calls just to kind of call around and see what everybody else is charging, so I get to kind of channel that in there. But I do find myself kind of using the skills that I picked up with acting with customer service. They usually go hand in hand. But the nice thing about my job is my boss understands that I'm an actor. I mean, it's just what I am. And I need to have that to keep my sanity. So he's more than okay with me doing shows. And I told him right when I was hired, hey, this is something I do. And it has to work with that, otherwise it's not going to work. And I've been in, I think, 3 productions since I've moved up here about a year ago. I've been lined up to direct a show, even though COVID kind of could have put a kibosh on that for now. But it's definitely, you got to find those avenues, otherwise you go crazy. This COVID has been, it's been hard not being able to have that channel. And you know, when they opened up the script reading thing, that was a godsend. You know, there's no way. But yeah, and that's, you just kind of play it by ear, especially from this point moving forward. I would love if I could just act for a living. That'd be amazing. And I'm hoping one day, you know, God gave me this gift for a reason, you know, and right now I don't know why, but eventually I will. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll never know. But it's something I wouldn't trade for anything. I love it so much. So yeah.
It's beautiful to see your excitement and enthusiasm for it, because it's a very specific gift, I think, and talent, and so it's cool to just see that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
And if anyone is in the area, how can they find out more about the script readings in Cloquet? Is there a website?
Yeah, it's actually on Facebook. It's, let me remember, County Seat Community Theater, I believe, County Seat Theater, Encore Theater in Cloquet, Minnesota. You can look it up on Facebook. And they've got all of the dates, and we're trying to do them either weekly or bi-weekly. Right now we're doing a lot of Carol Burnett skits, which is really fun. It's really fun. But they're looking for new work and new talents to showcase. So if you wanted to come to it, I think they allow up to 30 cars in the parking lot. And then if you wanted to be in it and showcase your talents, that's something that you can definitely do. They're way open to anybody who wants to showcase their talents, or if you want to try to script read. There's a lot of options there. So looking that up on Facebook. Otherwise, they do have a website. I think it's countyseattheater.com. If you look it up on Google, Google's got your back. So.
Well, wonderful. Thank you for being here today,
Yeah.
despite the crazy special effects.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thanks guys. This
Yeah.
was awesome. Thanks for letting me talk about what I love to do.
Yeah.
Our pleasure.